And welcome to another edition of the Big Nick Energy Podcast. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Pods, and Podbean. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Join our Facebook group. Join our Chalkboard. It's a messaging board app designed specifically around gambling and sports. Our page is 120 members now. We're doing our next giveaway at 250, so make sure to join and share your friends. My very special guest today is James Schiano, host of the Mets'd Up podcast, a content creator for Mojo, the sports stock market app, occasionally writing for the fantasy baseball website, The Pitchers List, and a history and poli-sci bachelor's degree holder from the Ohio State University. James, how you doing today, buddy?
Good. How'd you find my major? Did you peep LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, yeah. That's how I get all info for all my guests.
I do that too on my podcast. We always go deep into LinkedIn. It's kind of fun when we have like baseball people or like other content creators to like see like the path they've come. And then you get the question like, how'd you know I did that? It's always a fun moment, but that was cool. Cool to be on the other side of it.
Yeah, dude, LinkedIn is it's the dating app version of social media. You only use it when you need it. Like you're only looking for a job, you go on LinkedIn. You don't actually use LinkedIn if you have what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking to the choir. I've been hosting the Mets'd Up podcast officially with the Mets for almost a full year now and been with Mojo about 9 months. And I very much stopped using LinkedIn since both of those things happened to me in my life.
Yeah. I could have mentioned the Mets'merized too. And I was like, how deep do I really want to go in this thing?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they were some of my first, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah, no, James, thanks for being here. Just so we are going to go over the Mets a little bit and Mojo a little bit later as well. I want to pick your mind for both those things. Specifically the Mojo for the marketing standpoint and the Mets as a Met fan. The Knicks are currently 39 and 39 and 29 at the time of recording, fifth in the East. They're a full game up on Brooklyn, but tied in the loss column. Technically, they're one full game up by being 2 wins up. The Nets have the same amount of losses, though. Since the last time I recorded on here, the Knicks went 2-2. We're not going to deep dive into all 4 of the games, just the last couple. We'll try to mention the Boston game a little bit because you want to start with the high and then go to the 2 lows we have. But James, before we go into the Boston game, at least for the Miami game, just the very last play, or the last, I would say, 3 plays. Randle makes an and one on Bam. He might have got away with a push-off offensive foul. They go up. Miami doesn't score. They get the ball back. Randle then gets stripped by Tyler Hero, gives up the lead, and then Randle makes maybe the best shot of his career thus far, where he fumbles the ball like Tiki Barber, just gets stripped by Jimmy Butler, does not go out of bounds. He grabs it, takes a dribble, fading away, gets a double bang. Where were you and what did you think when that double bang went off?
I was at my friend's house. Shout out Mark. He's my co-host on the Mets'd Up podcast, Draft Nick Mark, hanging out with my other friend Drew. We were playing. We just had last Friday was kind of chilly. None of us really had any plans or wanted to get out and about. Long week for everybody. And we're just going to hang out, do what we want to do, maybe play a board game or so. And we just had it on in the background as it was like kind of going back and forth. And we earlier last week went to the Nets game. So we were all really steeped in our Knicks fever.
Oh, so you had just seen them blow out the Nets then?
Yeah, live in person. That was one of the most fun. That was probably the most fun game I've ever been to at Madison Square Garden, besides way back all the way like 2011, that playoff series against Celtics. But
yep.
I digress. Maybe that was 2012, 2010 series against Celtics. I don't remember. I was at game 1 when they beat the Celtics and won the series. They wound up winning. But however, I digress. That was just a cool moment as a Knicks fan who's kind of watched this team go up and down the last few years, specifically Julius Randle, because I feel like the Julius Randle from last year or the Julius Randle from 3-4 years ago, not 2 year ago Julius Randle, because that's the greatest athlete who've ever lived.
Yeah.
The bad Julius Randle would have had fumbled the ball or maybe tried to fight through contact and just got pissed off, something would have happened. He would look at the ref, he would throwing his hands up. But the fact he fought, he battled, he persevered, and then he just got up a shot that was not, I'm not gonna say it was a good look because it still ended up going in. There were a lot of defenders there, a lot of attention. But the fact he was able to be confident enough to take a loose ball, battle through contact, get a good enough look, and put the ball in the basket and kind of have his signature moment. Yeah, at least probably as a Knick so far. That was just a cool thing to see, the maturation of Julius Randle. Because I think we still forget how young this guy really is. He's been in the NBA for so freaking long, but just amazing to see him keep taking these little steps forward mentally.
We watch him mature more mentally, I would say even week by week, month by month at this point. He unfortunately has gone back a little bit in the past couple of games, and I think that has directly to do with Jalen Brunson missing most of the past 3 games. Randle finished the game 43-9. 8 of 13 from 3, 16-25 from the field. Brunson had 25 and 8. He unfortunately also injured his foot that made him miss the last two of the last 3 games, and then the last half of Sacramento last night. IQ has been going off with his 6-man of the year thing, 21 points, 7-11. RJ had 17 points, shooting 8-11 from inside the line, but 0-4 from 3, which is also a theme we're going to see. RJ's ability inside from 3 and his inability outside from 3. And then Butler at 33, screw that guy, but again, screw the Miami game. More improbable than the Miami win, because the Knicks were actually up a lot of that game and then had to pull it out in the end. The 131-129 double OT win against the Boston Celtics. Wild, absolutely insane. Tatum had 40, took 30 shots to get there. Wild. Brown had 29, 8 and 4 steals. They played 48 minutes, 47 minutes. Al Horford's old butt played 45 minutes in this game with 20 points and made 6 threes. But the man of the hour, the man of the day, Immanuel Quickley, 38, 8 and 7, 4 steals, 2 blocks, played 55 minutes. And Malcolm Brogdon didn't even play in the game, which this game made IQ go from complete his current journey of being a plus 22,000, 30,000, whatever it was 3 weeks ago for 6th man of the year, to becoming the favorite for 6th man of the year, including
jumped
scoring.
Up the favorite.
He was for at least one game. He probably lost it last night. He literally got 3 points in his worst outing since December.
And he scored those 3 points like a minute left.
Yeah, exactly. He almost helped. He helped out a little bit.
He was around.
But he also scored 7 points in the second overtime. Please tell me about the greatness that was Immanuel Quickley for at least one day.
I don't know, man. I was entranced by that game. I'm like, if I have to like rank the sports like I like and my teams, like the Knicks definitely come in third behind the Jets and the Mets, but there's also, they don't really overlap that much. So I always have to find my time during the winters to really focus in.
We cheer for the same teams.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Not the same order, but the same teams.
Yeah. And the Buckeyes, go Bucks, of course, OH. But that was an entrancing game. I hate the Celtics. I despise the Celtics. I was a little bit annoyed after crushing them a week and a half ago that there was like all these built-in excuses. Like, all right, you guys got to come play in Boston. Tatum got ejected. It was a ridiculous game. Wasn't getting any calls. Like Jaylen Brown didn't even play. I was like, all right, yeah, cool. Just undo all that stuff and let's go to your house and just beat you again.
Without Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, without Jalen Brunson, exactly. So we had the excuse. We still were able to win. It's so freaking cool to see Quickley mature. I've loved him like a son since he was even at Kentucky on that team that he just kind of like was able to take over those games. Not like slightly less talented Kentucky team that we were used to in that era at least. And I was terrified when he was in the trade rumors in the offseason, and just watching him mature and become just a freaking dog that he is. 6th Manual, he is so good. And that game was such a culmination of everything good he's ever done in his career. He was shooting, he was handling, he was distributing, he was active on the glass, he was really good on defense. Like, he can just do everything. And I'm really happy everyone else in the league is starting to notice that. It's
absolutely amazing that's taken everyone in the league this long to notice it, because we always say all the time that if you're in New York, you actually get more attention and you get more of the accolades that you deserve. Immanuel Quickley, I feel like up until the past 2 or 3 weeks, has gotten less attention than most New Yorkers usually would, in the sense of like nationwide NBA folklore and media. He does, like, there's a reason why he was so far down in the odds just a few weeks back, even though he had like top 5 numbers for almost all things. And his plus minus, which I know plus minus is like a mostly kind of dumb stat depending on the scenario. His plus minus has been amazing since he's been in the league. Like, how does this man not get more recognition up until now?
Well, a big part of that's probably when his head coach starts Alec Burks over him at point guard for 40 straight games less than a year ago. So I think that's probably part of the reason why it took people a lot longer than they should have to come around to him.
Yeah.
However, it's just painfully obvious now. I mean, also, it's just like, it's even ridiculous to think that he fell to 20th in the draft. Like, he's long.
25th.
Like, he has a clip. Like, what was the issue here? Like, why wasn't Immanuel Quickley a guy who was being lauded as like one of these like high profile game breaking guards to the next level? I'm happy that we were able to get him in the first year. Like, in probably all of our lives, the Knicks actually were lucky enough to have 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, Quentin Grimes, like back-to-back 25th overall picks. Well, Grimes isn't nearly as good as Quickley is yet, but I mean, he's a borderline great defender most of the time.
Yeah,
like, that's great value for 2 25ths.
Absolutely. And maybe that's just a lesson to the Knicks. Like, all right, you draft high all those years. No real guarantee you're ever going to get anything. Sometimes you got to bring these young players into a cohesive team that can actually allow them to like play their strengths and like cover up their weaknesses. And then eventually when they develop, that's how you get studs.
Absolutely. Again, IQ had his career high 38 points that game. Randle had 31, 9 and 4 with a Russell Westbrook like 7 turnovers, 5 of 13 from 3, played 46 minutes, not quite IQ's 55. Barrett had 29, 11 and 3, 10 and 22 from 2, 3 and 9 from 3, which is actually his best 3-point shooting game in this stretch. Also played 50 minutes. Mitch with a double-double, 13 and 14 and 43 minutes. And it was just absolutely insane. The Knicks were down by as much as 77-63 in the third. The IQ, RJ, and Randle to close the third quarter out were involved in every single bucket. They actually scored every bucket. except Mitch had one dunk off of an RJ pass. They ended the third on a 25-10 run to go up 88-87, which just set up the fourth quarter in both OTs. Really, absolutely amazing game.
Literally, the only bad thing about that game is we didn't have Breen and Clyde. Like, if we would have had them, it would have been perfect. But instead, it was just like, this is a really great thing to watch.
Yeah. I don't mind. What's weird is that when JJ Redick is on the call, Reggie Miller isn't as biased against us. I feel like
because he knows
Redick
someone's going to
almost
check
like
him.
tones him down. Yeah, exactly. JJ Redick might be the best thing for media in some time. Him and Kendrick Perkins on First Take and all saying all the stuff that's pro Knicks all the time.
They were chaotic this week. I really needed a bang when we were on the 19-2 run or whatever it was.
Yeah,
really need a bang. Whatever.
Can't get them every game. We should, but we can't.
Mm-hmm.
And then
sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah, exactly. And then to start with the and the sadness, you don't win every game. The 9-game win streak comes to an end. It started with them losing 112-105 to the LaMelo ballless Charlotte Hornets. The Knicks scored more points in the second quarter than they did in the entire second half. They got 45 points in the second quarter. I think it was 39 in the second half total. That's not good. The Hornets don't even have a mid three. They have a reg three of Kelly Oubre, Scary Terry, Rozier, and Gordon Hayward, who oddly enough has played in 17 of the Hornets' 22 wins this year, which kind of makes sense, I guess. They outplayed the tire and lackadaisical Randle Knicks mid three of no Brunson. So it'd be Randle, RJ, and IQ. It was a really, really rough second half.
Yeah, it kind of just felt like their legs kind of gave out after that one. Like that Celtics game took so much out of them. That was such an intense game. And you see the way you said 39 points in the second half, only 16 in the fourth quarter. It's just at some point you just can't win every game. Stuff's not going to go right. And then they shot like 25% from three. It's just sometimes that's it. That's kind of different. Two more of those threes go in, they end up shooting 30%, 33% instead. It's a very different game. But you quite literally cannot win them all. So if you got to lose one, just throw out a stinker against a bad team, just get it out, and then hopefully move on.
I know you said the thing about Tibbs starting Alec Burks over Emmanuel Quickly last year for a lot of the year, so you might be on the similar Tibbs bandwagon than I am.
Yeah.
If there was ever a time to play Obi Toppin and Deuce McBride a little more minutes, and if there was ever a time to use plus minus as like an indicator of whether your team is doing well or not, or your players really have it, Julius Randle ended up minus 20. I believe he was minus 39 in the second half alone, which is
you couldn't get one shot to fall. Like it was just nothing.
Him, Barrett, and IQ front ironed so many things in the fourth quarter. Obi Toppin was a plus 13 and Deuce McBride was a plus 8. And Randle and IQ, who are literally both of their immediate substitutions were minus 20 and minus 15. I think if there was ever a time to play him, it would have been then.
That kind of is why it's funny that like we look at plus minus, because like Obi was plus 13, sure, but first of all, he only took threes. He attempted 4 3-point shots, 0 2-point shots, which is bizarre from Obi. He didn't get to the line one time. He didn't put one other stat on the board besides hitting one
just
three.
1 for 4 3, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like plus minus cool, but like.
But you watch the game and you're like, this dude's running up and down, and the rest of them is like, it's like he is the most energetic person by far right now.
Well, that's the Tibbs effect, because now that we're getting to this point in the season, now we have this rotation that is probably a little bit smaller than I say most other teams in the league, or at least when we are going right and Brunson's not there, they do have to tighten it up a little bit. So you do worry about just being able to like maneuver on a nightly basis. Like a game like this, like you're right, it does seem from the outside perspective, we don't know, we're not in the meetings, we're not on the bench. It's hard for us. It's easy for us to tell. It's hard for us to realize what's actually going on, but yeah, just seems obvious. Like these guys might be a little bit tired. Like maybe an extra 5 minutes on the bench could change things for some guys. And again, neither of us are NBA coaches. I don't think either of us ever will be. However, from our perspective, it seems like that could have made a difference.
It would take one of us being the coach of our kid probably at this point, since neither one of us really has a basketball background, and then just going like proving our worth all the way up, follow them all the way to coach at Ohio State.
Yeah, there you go. Beautiful. No,
I actually got to the point of my notes just for the second half. Randle was a minus 32, Quickly was a minus 26, and Mitch was a minus 24. I think HART, Deuce, and Obi could have been a little bit better.
Yeah, probably. And again, we say that it makes sense, but we don't know what actually happened on the court. So
and they'll never admit that they're tired.
No, of course not. Nor should they. I want them to not admit that they're tired. That's better for us in the long run.
You saw the Josh Hart quote?
But yeah, of course, that's a great quote. I love Josh Hart. Oh my God, tell him a quote.
Oh yeah, no, it was like there's guys that work 12-hour days and will go to work at 6 a.m. every day. We play a game. There's no reason for us to complain. We should just be professionals out there. I paraphrased, but that was basically it.
Yeah, no, it was freaking beautiful. Josh Hart said all the right things since coming, and he's just been. This was the first time Josh Hart lost as a Knick.
Yeah. Now he's 9-2, which I'll take 9-2 all the time. Tell me about my football teams. As a Jet fan, I would take 9-2 and ever, literally anytime.
Next year, I'm gonna say 10-1 probably by that point, but 9-2 it would suffice.
I don't want to jump too much into the non-basketball stuff yet since we have more and more game, but we could
Yeah,
sidetrack a little bit. Are the Jets getting Aaron Rodgers?
I hope so. It feels like they might. If they don't at this point, I'll be really, really upset. But I would like them to very much so.
If
I
you
think there's a
find
good
out that
chance
Jimmy
for it as well.
Garoppolo's starting instead, how much are you going to cry the next day?
I'm gonna be super unenthused for the next season.
Yeah. I really hope if they do get Jimmy G, I really hope they actually keep Mike White because neither one of them can play a full season. And
Oh,
I
he could be the
can't I
backup
can't
for sure.
tolerate Zach Wilson anymore.
Mike White's the best backup in football.
Yeah, he might
Mikey
be.
Blanco.
Maybe Baker Mayfield still. We don't know, but one of the two.
I hate that guy. All right, back to basketball.
That's okay. And then lastly, the Knicks were at Sacramento last night. They lost 122-117. They were down 16 the same way they were up 16 against Charlotte. They clawed and fought their way back. I believe they were up 1 at one point in the third or fourth, like late third, early fourth, and they collapsed at the end of the game again. I actually wrote it down. If you combined the second half of the Hornets game and the first half of the Kings game, the Knicks were a minus 39. Follow these numbers real quick. They shot 32 of 98 from the field, which is just under 33%. And this is the real worst one. 8 of 42 from 3 between the two halves.
God.
19% from 3.
Jeez, that's crazy.
They were outscored 131-92.
Oh my God, that's terrible. 131 in 4 quarters.
Yeah.
Disgusting. And
It's basically giving up the Kings the whole year.
It was just, you just felt it too, again, like coming off that tiredness of that Hornets game, then going all the way across the country and playing a Kings team that has some of the best fan atmosphere in the entire NBA right now, lighting the beam, and it's also just a decently good team. Like, it's pretty deep rotation, and it was hard. They really couldn't really contend. And it felt like also Brunson leaving the game with a re-aggravation of his foot injury kind of took the wind out of their sails. And then the Knicks also just don't really have the type of wing defender that can do anything to Domantas Sabonis.
No shot. We all talk about as Knicks fans that Randle is a Sabonis killer. Randle and Sabonis almost never covered each other. Sabonis has been a center. I guess that he did in Indiana because they saw Miles Turner, but Sabonis on the Kings is the center. And that's all on Mitch and HART. And Sabonis is the type of dude that just puts those guys in foul trouble. And we see it over and over again. Mitch got 4 fouls in 20 minutes. HART, who ended up playing more minutes than Mitch, also ended up with 3 or 4 fouls in like 22 minutes. And the Knicks ended up going small, quote unquote. And I want to run this past you because I think I read it from the Strickland, but I've also just thought this on my own before. The Knicks go small, and their small lineups been Brunson and or IQ. I guess in this instance would be IQ, Grimes, RJ, HART, and Randle, which that sounds great in theory for 2K, but that's literally too small because Randle is 6'8", RJ is 6'6.5", and then they're all below 6'4". If we're going to go small, how is it not Randle and Obi at the 4-5? I just don't understand.
I don't know. I think there's probably just some other stuff about Obi that's not really Tibbs might just not think he's good enough to hang on defense to really be able to do this. And even I think just having HART on the floor, though, even with those small lineups, it helps so much because of how good he is on the glass. I think he had 7 offensive rebounds last night alone.
15 he was total, yeah.
Freaky down there. But that does help when you're able to go small in a lineup. The fact that you can have a guard out there who's 6'3.5", 6'4" on a good day, be able to get down there and clean up for you. But it was still it just felt like they gave up so much energy to get back in that game. This is such a tenement in basketball all the time, especially the NBA, that you just kind of run out to actually get yourself over the top. They almost had to run too soon. Like getting hot at the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth, you were like, oh man, there is just enough time to get back down again. And that kind of is exactly what happened.
The last 5 minutes, Fox just took over. Yeah,
Fox is incredible too. Fox is so lightning quick. He was the guy what was that? It was 2017 draft. That was the one.
Yeah. We literally just watched Josh Hart for all of the pros that Josh Hart's given us in his 11 games here. And especially even last night, like the 15 rebounds, the 9 points, the 7 assists, like he almost had his first ever triple double. He also just got torched by Fox over and over again. And Quentin Grimes and Deuce McBride both are similar in the sense that like, if the guy is taller than them, like 2 to 3 inches taller than them, for as much as they try to pester those guys, they really can't do much. They're giving up open shots over their heads. It is what it is. But for guys that are their height or only 1 inch taller than them, they are phenomenal. And Grimes was doing a better job on Fox than HART was. And we just didn't, even though Grimes was super hot in the third quarter and hot to start the fourth, he had 16 in his 19 points, I believe, in the second half. We just went with HART for too long and Grimes didn't cover Fox, and then Fox torched us, and that was that.
There's also an issue with IQ was on him and off him. They also couldn't get a shot going. It was just, again, Knicks went 13-50 from three. So in 2
Yeah.
games, he didn't hit any threes. That tells me the legs might be a little tired. And that's okay, because it's been a tough stretch. There's a perfect amount of time right now where you can get a little bit cold before the playoffs and then get hot one more time. It's okay. You were really
Agreed.
good, and you dip a little bit, and then you find the momentum again. Because there's at least with the difference in like, not so much the Hornets game, but last night's game, at least they're playing good basketball against a good team. They made it very competitive. It's weird to look at the Kings and be like, yeah, good team, but they are a good team. They're a very talented team. They're well coached. They have a lot of good players who do a lot of different things. Keegan Murray, wow, that guy does so many things well in a basketball court. He just always seems to be finding the right nooks, crannies, crevices, space. And Kevin Huerter's just freaking annoying. I really don't like him at all. I hate playing against him.
Agreed. He didn't even have a good game last night. He actually was the reason why I didn't go 3 for 3 in a row in my parlays, because I had Sabonis over, which hit, Mitch over, which hit, and then Herter over 2.5 threes. That's the only thing I've missed in 3 straight games. I was 8 for 9.
2.5 threes is pain, but that's all. That's kind of feels like a high number there. He took 7, 2 for 7. That's kind of low. Yeah. What are you gonna do? Hey,
it happens.
But freaking New York Albany guy, and he just found a way to. He had a couple of big shots too at the end. He hit the big 3 that was the response. I can't remember if it was the Grimes 3 or IQ's only 3, and then he had a putback that made Tom Thibodeau.
That putback was like the end of the game.
Yeah.
That was rough. I think they put him up 6 or 7, and then we just couldn't make up that deficit from there. That was the rebound of all the rebounds we didn't get that we needed to get.
Yes. Also, that was also like a second, third opportunity too.
Yeah, I would feel bad if we didn't mention Malik Monk. Malik Monk went absolute lights out, heating up. He's on fire in the second quarter. He got 14 of his 19 points in that period. He went 5 of 6, including 3 of 3 from deep. Monk barely didn't even play that much in the second half. He didn't do that much in the second half, but his second quarter on top of their ball movement was why they went up in halftime up 16 on us.
I think it's also consecutive games for Monk. I'm just going to double check right now. Oh, no, actually, no. He only hit 1 last game. But just him hitting 4 threes was crazy. I know even just talking Mojo stuff, maybe start transitioning a little bit. His line was set at like 1.5. Maybe it was like $1.20. And he hit 3 threes, like bang, 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 second quarter. And that thing went like 200% up.
This is actually perfect. This is the next thing I want to go over RJ, but I'll do RJ after the Mojo since you already mentioned it.
Yeah. And the RJ stuff's sad anyway, so.
No, it's all good. I have a bunch of bunch of good stats for RJ versus bad stats. I feel like he's been getting bashed a lot. And since the All-Star break, he's actually shown progress in almost every single statistical category, offensive and defensively, except for shooting threes, which for how much this dude allegedly, I'm not saying allegedly, he does practice. For how much this dude practice, it blows my mind. But James, about Mojo, I know you just mentioned the over-under thing. So you guys added the player props thing relatively recently, right? Can you explain to people how it works versus a different gambling app?
Absolutely. We added what we call, but just to like bring it back a little bit, Mojo, talking about it. We do some work with Big Knick Energy here. So building this relationship here. It is the sports stock market. So the way we launched specifically with the NFL. You can basically make a bet on a player's career, like over under the absolute conglomeration of all of their stats, over under it, and you can like win money, profit, percentage based on how different their expectations change. Or if a player retires, you get every stat that they've earned so far in their career. And there's dollars and cents values associated with every single stat, football and basketball. But
that's cool to know. I didn't know the retire thing. The retire thing cuts it off, and then it just cashes out automatically.
That's the whole key with Mojo, is that you get a guaranteed payout when a guy retires, because player share prices on Mojo are based on like what they've earned in their career, like the things they've actually done, and then what our market expects them to do. So that's what your price creates. So you have these two elements of a price, which is the earned and the future. The future is kind of what you are betting on. You're betting on whether or not a guy's going to do better than this. You can kind of, the way I like
the same as a normal stock.
Yeah, exactly. And the way I like to break it down in content a lot is like you kind of take a guy's production in his career, you either like divide it up by year or by game, and then you kind of see how long the market expects for them to play for. And that's kind of the intuitive way to get through it and kind of see if you can beat it or not beat it. But I digress. We did add these single game props towards the NFL playoffs. We opened them up to a few like very select beta users, people who are very enthusiastic and play the product very consistently. And it worked really well with football. It was cool. Touchdowns, yards. By Super Bowl, we were doing field goals, sacks. It was fun. And then we kind of realized this would be just incredibly fun for basketball, because every single night you have so many teams and so many players. You could do threes, points plus rebounds. It's very good stuff. So when I was explaining Malik Monk, 3-point lines are the most volatile because they're going to start the lowest. You know, if the guy's projected to score 20 points, you'll profit if he scores 25. That's only going to be 25% profit. So it's a little bit different than actual gambling, where you kind of have less risk involved, but you also, it's like your rewards are kind of capped, because let's say
either yes or no. It's yes or no. It's not exponential.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like a binary bet, regular sports book. But Mojo, you go percentages based on the line that is set. So like, and they say the less risk thing. You're like, oh, gambling, less risk. That's kind of a ridiculous thing to ever hear. Like, that slapped responsible gaming language on me. But in sportsbook, if you bet over 20 and a half and the guy scores 18, you lose 100% of your money. But in
Right.
Mojo, if you bet over 20 and a half, you go long on it, he scores 18, you only lost like 10% of your money. So
Oh,
a
wow.
$20 bet, you only lost $2. But also if it goes 25, then you make 25%. So that's why it's like the points bets are a little more tame, but the 3 points bets are insane because the guy's only going to be projected for like 1, 2, 3, maybe the Steph Curry 4.5, 5, barely. So a guy like Malik Monk, who's only expected to really hit 1 3 the entire game, you bet the over 1.3 threes. He hits one, his projections are already way up. So you can cash out at that moment, like based on that projection. Because if he hits a 3 in the first quarter, the market's going to say, all right, he's pretty likely to hit another 3 the rest of the game. He's almost a little bit likely to hit 2. So that's kind of the beauty of these. Like everything in Mojo is liquid. I can go in, out the whole game. So again, Monk, it's a 3. He has 2 threes. He has 3 threes. He had all 4 threes in the first half. So that prop got all the way up to like 5 at one point. So if you would have bet in for the 1, you would have gone 4x your money if you would have cashed out in that moment. And then it ended up trickling back down to 4 because he had none the rest of the game. And we've seen people in the product like kind of like switch their bets and like find the middles in this, kind of like when you think of arbitrage for stocks or different kinds of gambling on different books, where I've seen this happen with RJ in, I want to say it was the Hornets game because he got really hot from 3 in the first half, right? Remember?
Yeah.
He got hit like 3 in a row in the first half and there was no more the rest of the game. So if you would have bet over an RJ in the first half, you could have made like 75% profit on your bet. Then you would have been like, wow, this guy's legs are really going. I just watched him miss 2 because he did his last one in the second. He missed 2 more and then he was nowhere close in the second half.
Right.
You could have sold your shares of going long at that moment and then flipped and then shorted him. You're walking out with like 3.5, 4x of your money if you can hit those things all perfectly. We saw some dude who plays last week like hit a Joel Embiid 3 like this. Like he was in and out of 2 trades in less than a minute and he made like 400%. It was crazy. It was unbelievable because it was so close to the end of the game that there were like there's almost no chance he's actually going to hit one.
Yeah.
The price to buy in was like 15 cents a share. Then he hit it and the guy sold it for the 1 and like just trickled all the way up. So that being able to go in and out like super quickly, that is kind of the beauty of what Mojo is. Like you can watch this game, you can see how it's going, and you can like track momentum with your mind and then jump in, go out, go back, flip sides. Like that's kind of the fun of it.
And then for someone that's, because I definitely got everything you're saying as someone that's more of an experienced gambler, and then I do stocks also, so it's easier to follow. For someone that's never gambled before or never even done stocks before, what is the easiest way for them to get into Mojo, and how can they follow and build their experience up from there?
I mean, the first thing you should do is definitely follow us on all socials, just at Mojo, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. And then kind of like what I was saying more, like I say your way to dip your toe in is kind of go on these game by game, just the points bets. Because like I said, they're going to be much less volatile, but it's going to be something cool to watch. So I'm not going to do whatever you feel comfortable in. Always, please God, always gamble responsibly. It's the number one thing we have to do. And just be able to like watch the game and like see how the expectations move and see how that affects the way you're watching the game. Like if you bet over Donovan Mitchell 27.6 points, that's where his prop is somewhere about tonight, Friday, March 10th, when we're talking about it, you'll be able to kind of see and feel. And there's never really going to be that crazy of spikes in every direction, unless Donovan Mitchell rolls an ankle at the beginning of the game, in which case that stinks. Or unless someone like you bet in a big man, he gets into foul trouble. That's why sometimes the points plus rebounds bets are fun too. Horford, mentioned it before, alluded to, has been on an absolute tear recently.
Yeah.
Like I think 2 or 3 of his last 5 games, he's gotten like double doubles, and his season averages are like 9 and 6. So these lines have been set between like 13 and 15 these last couple of games, and he's putting up like 24 and 10.
Yeah.
He had twice in the last week. I don't know what the Celtics did in their last game. I don't remember it because we're moving kind of fast here, but twice he went over like 25, 30 points plus rebounds.
I would imagine Horford's
like,
3-point prop against the Knicks when he hit 6 and he's probably to hit 1 was astronomical.
Literally to the moon. But those points plus rebounds ones I thought were interesting because those are ones that if I was like looking at the market before the game, I'd be like, these are a little more stable. I'm expecting these to be a little less volatile rather than like a 3-pointer kind of bet like that. Because those are the crazy ones. If you want to go pandemonium betting on Mojo, you bet 3-pointers because it gets crazy, hectic.
3-pointers is the penny stocks of Mojo.
Yeah, for sure. And also because it literally is the penny stock because you're buying it for like $1, $2, $3. Where if you're buying it to points, you're buying a stock that's like 16, 18, 20, 25. So that's kind of where the difference is. So I think if you want to kind of like dip your toes in, do something with a little more stability, do something where you can like track and watch and not like feel crazy on it, do a points plus rebounds, do a points, rebounds, and assists, and kind of watch things go up and down.
And for everyone
listening, of how the market moves.
Yes, absolutely. I would say points and rebounds are probably the 2 easiest ones to follow because they have the highest settings, and then assists for like Trae Young, for example. For everyone listening, use our code BKE75 to get a special offer that downloads and uses Mojo. Also, Mojo is giving what is it called? The no-brainer bet for Julius Randle. Instead of having to hit 20 points against the Lakers on Sunday, March 12th, he has to get 5 points in order for you to win. Max bet at $20. Use where available.
Yes, New Jersey. And that also kind of plays on the same ideas I'm talking about, where he has to get 5 points to break even. 6 is the profit. And then if he gets 10, that's double. If he gets 15, that's triple.
Yep.
If he gets 20, that's quadruple. So if it's like last week and Julius Randle on Sunday goes for 30 plus, like you could be looking at a very nice gain for, again, the no-brainer bet. Julius Randle, 5 points.
Hey, if Anthony Davis ends up missing the game, Julius Randle getting 30 seems almost like a lock. So that sounds like a bet worth taking.
Gotta watch out for Jared Vanderbilt. The guy's all over the court. It's like a spider.
Yes, I hope he would cover Mitch.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not. But you never know.
Lakers, I think Knicks are gonna handle the Lakers. I think that Julius Randle, I think everyone's gonna have a big game. So no brainer bet this Sunday. You can buy in right now.
Take that money. And then lastly, James, you do, like you said before, you do host the Mets'd Up podcast with Mark Luino. Did I say his name right?
Yeah, you got it.
Luino, nice. I got the Italian thing down. But you guys record and air a new episode after every series for all Met fan followers, which I do have quite a few that tell me to do a Mets podcast. I don't follow the Mets nearly as much as the Knicks. If I know you said what would you say, Mets, Jets, Knicks for year 3?
Yeah, you're the opposite.
I actually like the Jets the most. I like the NBA more than the NFL as a whole, but I like the Jets more than the Knicks. The Mets were my first love. The thing is, baseball, through my OCD and ADHD of every other person in our generation and younger, it does falter, which I want to actually get before we go into the Mets thing. What is your opinion of the pitch clock, and how much do you think this is going to help for future generations to become fans?
I love the pitch clock so much. I'm a baseball freak. Baseball's my number one, always will be, always has been. And I've been seeing the pitch clock a lot the last few years because I went to the Arizona Fall League 2 years ago, did an interview with Brett Beatty there, who is now going to be a superstar in the New York Mets. And I've been to some Brooklyn Cyclones games, here and there. And the pitch clock has been active in both of those places since then. Getting a call right now, gonna mute that. So sitting in the game and seeing how the pitch clock actually worked in terms of what was going on the field, it was so apparent that it was a better product. There was better entertainment. It was just better flow. Everything worked significantly better. And I do think that as we go years through this now, people are going to realize that, this is the way baseball kind of was played when it was the most popular sport in this country. This is kind of the way that the cadence that was meant to be played on. It
used to be an hour 40 games on average.
Well, that's never going to happen again because now we have offense and strikeouts and pitchers will have velocity. But cutting down the time between and the commercials, cutting down the time between pitches from nearly of 30 last year to 15 seconds this year, you're going to be cutting like a half hour, 40 minutes off every single game. And we're already seeing that with the World Baseball Classic going on. It started earlier this week, where they have no pitch clock in the World Baseball Classic. Those games have been routinely 4 hours long. Yeah. And the spring training games are routinely 2 hours, 20 minutes. So think about that difference of time. 2 hours, 20 minutes versus 4 hours. It's crazy. And also, though, I do want to push back on your sentiment that, baseball is dying with the generations. Baseball the last couple of years, in terms strictly on social media, has had mentions that rival the other major sports in this country. So I do think that there is a young generation right now who is falling in love with baseball. It's a very star-laden sport and has some of the most exciting plays I've ever had in the entire history of the game. And I think that with the pitch clock, no more shift, I think there's going to be a lot more stolen bases as well. I think it's going to be a pretty cool year for baseball in this country.
For the older generation, that I would say people maybe your parents' age, grandparents' age, etc., the ones that I've heard that do have negative feelings about the pitch clock, what has been their main gripe against it, and what would you say to convince them otherwise? Like if they don't care about the time, like they're like, I don't care if a game takes 4 hours, I go to the game for it to be at the game. What would be your pushback against them saying like this is ruining the American pastime, quote unquote?
Well, I think I would tell them I'm sure you've been sitting in Citi Field or Yankee Stadium at 10:42, and you're like, if I don't leave here in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to miss my train. And this game
I work at 7 a.m.
Yeah, and this game is still in the top of the 8th inning. So I think that would be the big one. I'd tell you that everything is going to become easier. And I heard a minor league executive talk about this last week, talking about last year. Like, were you guys concerned with the pitch clock that was going to hurt your concession sales? And the guy was like, honestly, it didn't hurt them at all because the fans are staying here the same amount of time anyway. Usually people were just leaving in the 7th inning after it got to 2.5 hours because they would get tired or bored or have to get home. So I think now the game's just going to be over at 9:30. That's the time everyone's leaving anyway. So I do think that, again, and the one thing I've heard people be upset about is just literally the fact that there's a clock in baseball. It's meant to be an untimed, unclocked sport. And I do see that a little bit because I think there's a lot of moments in baseball where the anticipation is critical and it's key for a moment. So I do think there is a chance that we amend this rule eventually to the regular season where we will turn it off in the 9th inning. I think that kind of makes sense. I think we have probably a little ways to learn about this rule and understand it. There've really been a handful of infractions during the spring, but if I look at minor league data from last year, there were over twice as many infractions the first month of the season, like per game, than there were once you got past it. So I think it's just something these guys have to get used to, understand the muscle, learn the new strategies, learn the new mechanisms, and then move forward from there.
And then one thing about the World Baseball Classic, I read this, maybe you could confirm this a little more. The guys that are actually in MLB that were pressing and training with their teams prior, they're the ones that are still pitching within 20 seconds. And the guys that they're part of the Korean League, Japanese League, minor leagues that don't have it, etc. They're the players that are actually still taking 30 to 40 seconds in between pitches. Is that correct?
I can see that. I haven't watched that much yet because a lot of the teams that have more of the major league players haven't begun yet. The two groups that started were the groups in they're playing in Tokyo and Taiwan.
Yeah, they're also at 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, there were a couple games in the late afternoon. China and Czech Republic played a crazy game that started at 5 this morning, ended about 9:15, where Czech Republic had a big comeback and a walk-off home run. Pretty cool. Czech Republic has a couple of fun players on it, actually. But tomorrow, Saturday, so probably not tomorrow when you guys are listening to this, but on Saturday starts the real groups. The groups in
most
Miami,
likely today for anyone listening.
Yeah, today for anyone listening. And those are ones we're going to see. So I will be interested to see, actually be able to track that just mentally. Like, are these guys actually taking all their time, or are they like sitting back and relaxing, knowing they don't have the clock on them?
Right. I feel like, I mean, if they care about MLB more so than the World Baseball Classic, I would imagine most athletes are people of like robotic routine. They probably want to get used to the fast ways versus the old way.
I'll tell you this, though. These players love the World Baseball Classic. They love it so much. This is such a big event for them because a lot of these players, like, most of their baseball lives are coming through their countries, especially a lot of the players from Latin countries. Like, so much of what they've done their entire lives, but I'm playing baseball, people from my country, and there's a lot of pride there. Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Puerto Rico. Like, this is so important to them. And I just remembered I was at spring training 2 weeks ago, and we talked to Carlos Beltran, who's now is a front office role with the Mets. And this is the first World Baseball Classic he's not participating in. He's played in all 4 World Baseball Classics for Team Puerto Rico beforehand. And just mentioning the World Baseball Classic, you watch him like lean back and light up. Like, it's fun to get there with all the guys and like everyone could be together. And like, you can really feel a sense of like camaraderie and pride when you get in there. Everyone in the locker room has shared experiences. Everybody's a shared like vigor and like love for the game on the field together. And you could really feel the passion when you talk to the players about it. And I think that's the coolest part about the World Baseball Classic.
I absolutely love that. Everyone that's listening has to tune in, at least for a couple of the games. And for a couple of the games is in the Puerto Rican games because they have a lot of Mets, and then American games because of America.
And Puerto Rico's playing Dominican Republic later this week, and that is they are
Dominican Republic's number one team.
They sold out Marlins Stadium. They sent
they
messages.
Can't sell out Marlins Stadium for playoff games. That's unbelievable.
It's $300 to get in as the time of recording this.
What?
I have friends who are traveling to go, but it's going to be the most electric baseball experience in this country like ever. They had to send out messages to like people who live like near where they have Marlins Stadium down Miami-Dade County to like expect crazier than usual crowds for a baseball game. They sold it out. It's going to be legitimate chaos. I cannot wait to watch that game. It's going to be absolutely beautiful.
And for all the listeners, what time is that game again?
I don't remember what time of day that game is. I'll tell you right now. I'll get it right now. But
I was gonna say, I'll look it up. I'll filibuster for a little bit. You're making me super excited to actually watch this, and I wasn't gonna watch. I have a lot of time to kill at work, so
it's super, super, super fun. Like it's something. It's like kind of a meme with me and some of my friends because like one of my friends like loves it so freaking much that we just kind of like razz him a little bit, but it's really just such a fun environment. That game, Venezuela, Puerto Rico is the 12th, which is Sunday at 7. So great amount of time to catch that before the Knicks game starts.
Yeah.
And then, so I think I might have been right with my Tuesday for the other one, but that didn't load up so easily.
It's all good. Either way, no matter what, we should all tune in. If the Knicks aren't on, you should definitely watch this. And we need to get more young people into baseball.
Wednesday at 7, Puerto Rico versus Dominican Republic. That's going to be a trip.
Tune in. For sure, tune in and also get their stuff on Mojo. Are you guys doing props for the World Baseball Classic?
No, we are expecting to launch baseball sometime earlier this season, probably around the time the NBA regular season ends is the goal right now. Can't say anything because it's not set in stone right now, but expect baseball stocks on Mojo. And with my baseball affinity, I think I'm going to be central to the process of like player pool selection and helping out with that element of it.
James, I'm going to use you for all picks. Anything you suggest, I'm going to take your word for it. I'm going to hope
you can't say that because I work for a gambling company. So
that's fair. That's fair. I'm not going to take any
other
of your
picks.
advice.
Yeah, sure, but you got to gamble on Mojo instead.
That's fair. That does make sense. And now to finally get into the Mets, because I do want to get some Mets info from you, because again, I have to pay attention to the Knicks for a lot of this time of year. The Mets, as we all know, did not get Carlos Correa. So for any Mets fan that hasn't been tuning into the offseason, who were their biggest acquisitions that aren't rookies right now?
I mean, it definitely starts and ends with Justin Verlander, one of the greatest pitchers of our generation. Won the Cy Young last year. Still seems to be on top of his game and nearly 40 years old, coming off Tommy John surgery. He's sliding his rotation, more or less replacing Jacob deGrom, and we're expecting a very big season out of Justin. Also, I interviewed Justin Verlander right after his press conference, 15 minutes on the Mets'd Up channel, the Mets official YouTube channel, Mets'd Up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Really great interview. Just incredible to talk to a guy who's like literally larger than life in terms of just being like half a celebrity, just with Kate Upton, just being as famous as he has been for so long, and also being literally one of the greatest pitchers that anybody alive right now has ever seen. So pretty cool for him. Re-signing Brandon Nimmo and Edwin Diaz were also major moves. Those guys are both near the top of their. Edwin Diaz is the best closer in baseball. It's not even close. Brandon Nimmo is one of the 5 best center fielders in all of baseball. Both got big money to stay home. Both really excited to have both of them back in the fold. And then past that, the Mets really filled out a lot of the depth on this roster, I'd say, in the offseason. They pulled a lot of very interesting relievers and very bizarre trades, a lot of minutia, stuff that probably would bore the average basketball fan. And then
what about the best pitcher that was in Japan?
Oh, yeah, Kodai Senga, of course. I forgot about Senga. You're right. Kodai Senga, he wasn't the best pitcher in Japan. Roki Sasaki, who we're going to see in the World Baseball Classic, was the best pitcher still in Japan. He's like a 23-year-old, throws 100 miles an hour with a crazy splitter. He is ridiculous. He's probably coming to America in the next few years, but Senga's coming over as a guy who sits like 96, 97, 98 miles an hour. He has the lowest average annual value of his contract for any player that throws a average fastball higher than 96.5 miles an hour as a starter. Wow. Little tidbit from the Mets'd Up podcast. So we're going to see that. He has a pitch that's called the Ghost Fork. Yeah, it's kind of his own invented pitch. It's like more or less a splitter, kind of a forkball, but he calls it the Ghost Fork. We also interviewed Senga when he signed to the Mets'd Up podcast through his interpreter. He is hysterical. He's such a funny guy. To be able to crack jokes with someone who doesn't speak any word of your language and vice versa is a beautiful experience, just to have that good of like body language and delivery. So should tip the cap for Senga to that. He has first start of the spring last Sunday. He looked pretty good. I'm excited to watch him. I'm a big pitching nerd. I think he has a chance to do some real special stuff.
You are making me excited. I can't wait to tune in. I'm probably going to tune in April a little bit, but I won't really be able to talk about it too much till May. I can only watch so many games. And then what about
playoff run going on?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, hopefully they make it past the first round. I'm going to knock on a bunch of wood to get there. And hopefully they actually destroy Donovan Mitchell in the process. And then for the 4 Mets rookies that are expected to be used throughout the year, starting from the most highly projected, I forget what the word is, MLB rankings versus to the lowest. It's Francisco Alvarez, Brett Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio, and Mark Vientos. Starting with Alvarez. Mauricio, yeah. There we go. Starting with Alvarez, what do you expect out of the 4 guys?
Alvarez is a guy who I think is like a bit of a lightning rod right now, both like in the Mets circles, baseball circles, fantasy baseball prospect people, because he is like, as a hitter, he's nearly ready to be in the major leagues. Like if you told me right now where he's going to play 150 games at DH this year, I would say he's probably going to be better than league average with the bat. Like as a 21, 22-year-old, hit 25-ish, 22-ish home runs and like really start to look like a guy who could have the potential to be a superstar at the plate. But the other side of that is that he is coming up as a catcher, and catchers in Major League Baseball have so much to do. They have so much to be aware of. You have to get to know all these pitchers. You have to be able to block pitches. This year's stolen bases are probably going to jump like 30% across Major League Baseball. So what you're doing behind the plate is going to become more important than it has been years past. And I do have some friends who have seen him. A buddy of mine works for the Houston Astros organization. The Mets been playing a couple games there because their facilities are close to each other. And he said Alvarez looked great behind the plate, looked much better than anybody had ever said. And I do believe that. You do see like his athleticism when he catches a lot. But again, there's so much mentally that you have to do as a catcher in Major League Baseball, especially with a very old pitching staff, a pitching staff that's super ready to win, a pitching staff that has 3 new guys in it that weren't even on this team last year, new guys to get to know how they like to play, how they like to pitch, what kind of game they like to be called, what they like to throw when, where, why, and how. But I do think Alvarez is still a guy who just projects to be a fantastic hitter. Like this power and his play discipline, his walk rates in the minor leagues are up there with very comparable to a player, Kyle Schwarber, who was similarly a catcher whose bat was a little bit ahead of his glove, and they wound up moving him off there, and now he's become one of the best power hitters in baseball. I'm not saying it's going to happen to Francisco Alvarez, but I do think there's going to be a situation this year where that choice will be presented, and it kind of that becomes a testament to a player's relationship with their organization, how you navigate that.
What would you decide at some point? I know you're not the Mets GM, obviously, or a coach or anything. Would you decide at some point sooner rather than later to make him a move like to first base or outfield to get him out of the catcher role?
There's 2 schools of thought with that. I'm also an employee of the Mets, so I can't really say everything. But it's like you have to decide where a player is going to give you the most value. And there's one school of thought there is that this player being a very good power hitter from the catcher position if you're able to do anything back there, be even okay with the glove, be average with the glove, be able to call a game, be able to throw enough guys out, and then you're able to be a dominant force at the bat, you've just become one of the most valuable players in the entire sport.
Yeah.
So if there's any chance of that, it seems like it'd be useful to leave him in that role. But then the flip side of that is, like I said before, like if you're a team that needs a right-handed power bat, which every single team in the league does, and the Mets are probably find themselves in that boat, and you have one that's pretty ready, and you have a chance for an elite hitting ceiling. Like you have a chance for a guy in his prime 3-4 years from now to be literally, like, not even mincing my words, like pushing 40-45 home runs with like a 360 on base percentage. Like what he did in the minor leagues.
That fence and maybe 50 home runs.
I know they did move the fence in this year, but that's going to help
Yeah.
the lefties more. I think that was a big one for, Lindor, McNeil, and Brandon Nimmo. Bunch of big contracts there. So I'm excited about all those guys, a nice new fence they're going to have in there. But that's kind of where the difference is with Alvarez. Like if they think that they really need him right now, but that's why I think that we should temper expectations for Francisco Alvarez in 2023. I think that he just is going to need a little bit more time in the minor leagues than these guys because of how difficult catching is and just where the rest of this roster is in terms of the DH depth. So I do think that Alvarez still has the superstar potential, but I think this year we're going to learn a lot about what his future will look like.
Awesome. I hope we get to see him more often than not. At least DH, is he going to start on the original 25-man roster? He's supposed to at this point, right? Or are they going to have him in AAA for a while?
I'd say probably not. It's also 26-man roster now. I changed that a few years ago. But I just feel like right now they got Daniel Vogel back. They re-signed him. They brought him back. I think he's going to be the stable DH to start. And whatever happens, things are always going to change in Major League Baseball season. There's 162 games. It goes on for 6 months. It is a marathon, not a sprint.
That it is.
I don't think fans should freak out when they don't see Francisco Alvarez's name on the opening day roster, because I also think it's better for his development. Just play every day.
Yeah.
Get back behind that plate. Do what you got to do. I think
Absolutely.
that's probably the best thing for him.
Yeah. That's fair. That does make sense if he gets more time in AAA to actually be able to work on his craft, especially defensively. And then what about Brett Baty? So we saw Brett Baty a little bit in August last year. He started out, first hit was a home run. He did go downhill a little bit from there, and then unfortunately got hurt, missed the rest of the season. So because he didn't actually hit the minimum at bats threshold, he's still technically a rookie this year, correct? What do you expect out of Brett this year?
I love Brett Baty so much as a person, as a prospect, as a player. I think Brett Baty is like one of the most underrated prospects in the entire sport right now. I think a function of that is being overshadowed by Francisco Alvarez a little bit, just because they're in the same system and Alvarez is ranked slightly higher in most like major prospect rankings, Pipeline, Baseball America, Fangraphs, and whatnot. But Brett Baty does so many things well, man. Brett Baty really knows how to put the bat in the ball. Brett Baty has prodigious power. Brett Baty's a hard worker. He's a smart dude. He's really likable. He's liked, and he knows how to take a joke. He knows how to be a part of a locker room. That he's just like, he's cool. Like it seems like a lot of things are going well for Brett Baty right now. We had interviewed him 2 years ago at the Arizona Fall League, like I mentioned, and we made that contact. He walked up, he said what's up to us. Like he brought up stuff we talked about back then. Like he remembered it. Like he just really seems to be like a dude who it's like all coming together at the right time. He's crushing the ball in spring training. He's batting like over 500 in like 10 games. Like he is doing every single thing right. And I think that he's kind of forcing the Mets' hand where he actually might break camp with the team. The only one out of all these prospects who I think has the opportunity to. And if he does, and he just takes that job, you could be looking at a guy who could be in the Rookie of the Year conversation.
And like you said before, he is a tall, handsome Southern boy. The ladies of New York, you will have some eye candy.
Brett Baty, baby.
There you go. Also, great name to say, Brett Baty. You can say it 5 times fast, and you can actually say it, which is the most amazing thing.
Nothing better than alliteration, right?
I love it. And then what about Ronnie Mauricio?
Ronnie's a really interesting case because Ronnie was like a hotshot prospect when the Mets signed him, because he signed him very young. He came into the league and he was in rookie ball at like 17 years old, and that's kind of a rare thing. And he was hitting it well. He's super big, projectable, like 6'4" frame. I always tell people it looks like Brandon Marshall, like when you're standing next to him.
Oh, wow.
He's huge. And like I saw him then, and he was like, all right, this length here is going to fill out. And then he kind of fell down prospect list because he never had that like amazing season. Like he never did that thing that like the top 5, top 10 prospects do, where they're like 50% better than league average, like 25, 30 home runs across a minor league season, whatever. But he just has kept getting better. He's kept getting better. Last year, he ended the season up AAA. He had a great year in AA. Then he went to the Dominican Winter League over this winter, and he won the MVP and won the Licey Tigers championship. Best player on the team. Hit second, third every single game. And like, oh, something's really happening here. And he's come to spring training like a man on a mission. He's hitting the crap out of the ball. He's 2 home runs over 450 feet in like the 9 games he's played. He's still fielding a position as shortstop, which people didn't really expect at 6'4" with a lot of mass building.
Right.
And he just looks super good doing it. And He's swinging, missing significantly less. He's only struck out one time this spring in like 17 at bats, which is for
That's
him, that's a
awesome.
huge deal because he's a guy who has struggled to build play discipline in the past. He also walked once, which walking once in 17 at bats isn't that great. But for Ronnie Mauricio, it's not that bad because he's a guy who's been more of like, I'm gonna swing, I'm gonna try and get this hit tool going, I'm gonna try to put my bat in the ball as much as possible. If he's been chasing less, he's been looking at pitches outside the strike zone more. A lot of things are happening this spring that have actually given me significantly more confidence, not only in his like long-term potential, but his potential to contribute on this Mets team in the near future, which is something I never would have said a month and a half ago.
That's absolutely insane for a guy to jump that much. The baseball classic he just did well in, or the winter, it was just this past winter.
Dominican Winter League, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome for him to actually be
Yeah.
able to do that recently. Timing is everything, man.
No, and he's just hot. He had hot into the season. He went right to the winter league and came right to spring training. He just never stopped. Baseball, baseball, baseball. And he's in it and he looks really good.
That's awesome. And then what about Mark Vientos, last but not least?
Mark Vance is good. Mark Vance is another guy who was really hot as a prospect when he got drafted. I believe he was second round pick and he was a little bit more athletic and lithe. He's put a lot more weight on his frame the last few years, become a guy who's going to be on the corners, just hit tanks. But I do think he still needs more time, especially in the first two guys I mentioned, because even though Vientos had a great season in AAA last year, I think he had either nearly 30 home runs or just under 30 home runs. He still struck out about 30% of the time down there, which if you're going to strike out 30% of the time, you kind of got to tack on 5 points when you get to the next level.
Yeah.
So if you're striking out 35% of the time in the major leagues, you're probably not going to be super productive, especially as a guy who can't play premium defense well. And he just still hits the ball opposite field and on the ground a little bit more than I'd like. Citi Field bringing the fences in, it will be able to help that right-handed opposite field power, but you really want to get to your pull side power, especially if you're a guy who's like your power is your calling card. Like that's your tool. That's your trade.
Right.
You want to be able to get around that ball and get the ball out the quickest way possible. And we've seen a couple other, very, very highly talented first base prospects the last 2 years, Spencer Torkelson and Andrew Vaughn, who are kind of more right-handed or kind of more of those like slightly opposite field hitters, struggle to get to their power in Major League Baseball games. So I do have a little bit concern with that for Vientos. I do think he's a guy who just could get a little bit better pitch recognition in the minor leagues. And I do think he will definitely start the season in the minor leagues.
That's fair. Oh, for
Probably.
the three that are not Brett Beatty, you think AAA for all three of them, or is AA an option for any of them?
I think AAA for sure. I think they'll be up in Syracuse. If any listeners live up there, good spot to go watch a game because it'll be three guys who are basically major league players to be hanging out down there.
It's a good time to get their autograph before they actually get up here. It's so much easier to get at a minor league game. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, and also just to say, hey, like these like I feel like we forget about these guys. I've been learning it just from like talking and interviewing them. Like these are kids. Like Beatty's like 23, like Alvarez is like 21, Mauricio's the same, like Vientos like 22. It's like they're just dudes. Like you remember yourself when you were 22. That's what they are. They just
they're chill
really
frat
good at
bros
the sport.
basically.
Yeah, I wouldn't say frat boys, but they're just like they like to hang. Like they just like to be nice and like chill. So just like say what's up to them. Be like, yeah, how you doing? And love your game. Like, all right, cool, thanks.
Also, there's not a lot to do in Syracuse, so go to a game.
Yeah, not really at all.
James, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I got a couple of quick hitters for you, then I'll get you out of here. For the last thing for the Mets, their biggest strength going into the year and their biggest weakness if they fail, what do you think happened?
Mets' biggest strength, I would say, is depth. They've done a lot of good job this offseason in building out the back of their bullpen, building out the back of the rotation, building out their bench. I think they have a lot of players that are going to start the year on the 26, on the bench, and even at the top of that AAA roster who can contribute and won't really miss a beat. And I think when you look at the best teams in baseball over the last few years, the ones that have the highest seeds going into the playoffs, like that's what they did. The Mets' biggest weakness is probably just the fact that they didn't get that right-handed power bat. They tried with Correa. People have said that that's kind of be what they needed. I do think there's a chance that, Brett Beatty and Francisco Alvarez fill that power void. And I think a lot, not a lot, but I think there is, something on their shoulders this year because that didn't happen. I also just think there is always, it's baseball. Like their two aces are combined like 80 years old. Like there's always a chance someone gets hurt.
Yeah.
And not that they can't get past that because last year their two aces, DeGrom and Scherzer, combined to barely make 30 starts. So, and they still won 101 games. I do think that is a concern where if you're not going into the playoffs with those two guys feeling their best, then you're no longer like one of those upper echelon teams anymore.
That makes sense. As long as the top two, even three, if Kodai really actually shows out the way he potentially could. If the top three are healthy going into September, I think that's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, Kodai's going to be a high variance guy. It's always an adjustment coming to the major leagues from Japan because you're pitching a little more often. The ball's a little different. The hitters are expecting more velocity. So there's going to be some amazing starts. There's going to be some bad starts. The command can be really bad. Or it can be really good. Sometimes his new sweeper is going to be working. Sometimes it's not. I would definitely tell everyone to like give Kodai a little bit of patience because I think people are expecting him to be like an ace. I don't think he's an ace. I think he's a guy who's going to be like a 3.5, 3.7, 3.8, like 3.9 ERA guy with hopefully 10 strikeouts per nine, maybe a hair under it, depending on how the stuff translates. But definitely give some patience because his upside is very important to what this team could use in the playoff series.
That's awesome. Hopefully it hits the high side, not the low side,
Yeah.
And then last question, I'll get you out of here. For both the Knicks and the Mets, most optimistic ending of both their seasons this year. and then the most pessimistic ending to both their seasons this year. I would say for the Mets, obviously, it's win the World Series for the optimistic one, but
I'm gonna say the same thing for the Knicks. Why are we playing this game? We're trying to win a championship.
I always want to win a championship.
You tell me Knicks can't grind the Celtics down in a 7-game series. I feel a little bit better
I
about
don't
that
think
after
they
the
could
last
beat.
couple of weeks.
I do too. I just don't think they beat the Bucks. I just don't see it.
They don't have to. I mean, maybe if they end up in the 5, they will have to. But I don't know. I'm. This is the most optimistic I've been about a Knicks team in like what 10 years. Like I'm really
Since
excited to see
2012. Yeah.
Yeah, since the Tyson Chandler, Amari Melo squad. So I'm just excited that they're really playing good basketball and they're finding different ways to win. There's different guys who can shoulder the load. We haven't been able to say this about Knicks team in a long ass time. It's amazing.
This is so very true. I've said this on prior podcasts. I think their floor is losing in the first round. The Cavaliers would be the worst of the worst, obviously. Their ceiling is making it to the conference finals by avoiding the Bucks. And then for the Mets, it's obviously we either win the World Series or September crap happens.
Yeah, I mean, baseball's a long season. They had the playoff teams this year, so it had something catastrophic would have to happen for them not to get there. But it's just baseball. Baseball's long. We're talking about this in March right now. 6 months from now, baseball playoffs won't even have started yet.
Yeah.
So we just gotta get out there day by day, keep winning baseball games, do as much as you can, play good ball, get to the playoffs.
All New York needs to succeed at all times. This is the first time in my adult lifetime, probably I would assume yours too. I think I'm older than you, that there's a chance that the Rangers, Islanders, Mets, Yankees, Jets, Giants, Knicks, and Nets all make the postseason. All 8
year. It could
in
be cool.
1 calendar year. It would be absolutely amazing.
Need that.
James, before we run, plug Mojo, plug your podcast.
Absolutely. First of all, anyone listen to this, follow me on Twitter at James_Schiano. It's mostly baseball stats and memes. If you like either of those things or if you just want to hang, I'm talking more about basketball and football now with all the Mojo stuff going on. At Mojo, like I said, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, putting out a lot of interesting stuff on there. Lots of tidbits about the products, some fun TikToks and stuff. Just a lot of good, well-rounded content, I believe. And then Mets'd Up, METSDUP, if you guys want some Mets content. Twitter's bumping. We get exclusive interviews with players because we work for the team, and it's really great content.
For all the people that follow and listen to me that have been asking me to do Mets stuff, follow this man right here. He's going to be where I get most of my info this year for sure.
Please, I hope you got a new listener, at least one.
James, thank you so much, man. Much appreciated. Let's go Knicks. Let's go Mets. Peace.